Hi guys. Hi guys. So this is going to be a video series on how you can work together with a software development company or a software developer. Should you require a piece of software to be developed, if you have an app idea, if you're running a business and you want to do some custom software that helps you to operate your business more efficiently, integrating two different softwares together, for example, maybe MailChimp and your ERP, maybe integrating a payment gateway into your e-commerce shop like Shopify or WooCommerce. I'm not sure if I said mobile app, I'm going to say it again. Yeah, that sort of thing. So this is what this video series is going to be about. It's going to be impromptu. I'm not going to script it, and I'm not going to go back and edit and re-edit. But what I will do is that each video, over time, I'm going to update it and have a better script for the next one. But this is just purely to get the ball rolling. Yeah, it's going to be value nonetheless. So stick with me if you're interested. Yeah, welcome to Trail's introduction and guide to working with a software developer. Okay, so the first concept that I want to bring to your guys' attention is going to be the software development lifecycle. So this is a methodology of a couple of steps that you should follow as a software developer, software development company, in order to successfully achieve the creation of that software. Software is complex. It's very difficult to explain software to non-software people. It's like, I'm not even going to try in this video. But if you follow some sort of plan, it's going to bring you closer towards your desired result than if you have to just kind of do things like, I don't know, right? So there's some sort of structure involved in this. And I should probably be looking at the camera. Okay, cool. So there are 6 stages to the software development cycle. Stage 1, planning. Stage 2 is analysis. Stage 3 is design. Stage 4 is implementation. Stage 5 is testing and integration. Stage 6 is maintenance. Okay, so let's start with stage 1, planning. So in the planning phase, what you're going to want to do is map out what is it that you want to achieve? What is it that you want to achieve? Do you have the necessary resources to achieve it? When will you be able to begin this project? What is your budget for the project? Ultimately, if you have to summarize in like 1 or 2 sentences, what is your objective of it? Like the overarching high business requirement, overall business requirement, right? That needs to be satisfied when you can say, okay, cool, the software has been completed. Like, let's say, for example, Microsoft Windows. I mean, it does many things, right? Right? How many things can you do on Microsoft Windows? As a non-IT person, you're like, well, that's the entire computer, right? And how many things can you do on a computer? It's many, many, many things. So it's impossible to know that at the start of the project, right? Those things kind of snap on as the software evolves, right? So planning, you want to kind of get that one overarching thing that you want to achieve, that objective. So for Windows, their overarching objective would be a user interface for users to interact with a computer hardware. So that's essentially what you're doing with Windows, right? Is that it gives you access to access the CD-ROM or to access a flash drive. So instead of you, in the olden days, if you needed to access some form of data, you'd have to code, in order to access that data. So what Windows does is they give you a nice, pretty Windows and a mouse, and you can now access the data. So what you're actually doing with Windows is you're actually interacting with the hardware. So you see, so we've summarized all the million things that you can do with Windows into that one overarching business objective. So we must understand that. Okay, so that will determine in the planning. And like I said, the other things, project management things, time, cost, quality, scheduling, priorities, those sort of things. There's also in this stage, you most likely are gonna sign an NDA. It depends on the project, right? Like, I mean, simple websites they don't really require NDAs. You kind of just call, what's your website? It's publicly available information. Let's get going on it, right? Whereas other things like, let's say, corporate software that you use inside your business, you're going to want an NDA for that, because you wouldn't want your developer sharing that information or like idea with anyone else, right? So you'll enter into an NDA agreement between yourself as the client and the software developer or development company. The NDAs are important. Personally, what I use is an MNDA, which is a mutual non-disclosure agreement, which means that it protects both parties' ideas. In an NDA, if you're the client and we need to sign an NDA, it means that I can't, as a developer, utilize that information or whatever it may be from the project, right? I'm not allowed to disclose anything. The client is the owner of the intellectual property. But in a mutual non-disclosure agreement, it also protects the development house, which means that, let's say you as a client come to the development house as with an idea. Okay, let's say the idea is to build a new banking app, and you've got all these cool new innovative ideas. Now, as the development house, we've also got innovative ideas, right? We also tech geniuses, right? So you bring your idea and we can add on to that, right? So we can make that idea better. But now we can also share things that, even though we're not in the banking sector, that could be unique and that holds tremendous value. So we also want to put ourselves on that. So we could share information with you that you don't have. And then that actually restrains you from then taking that and then utilizing it somewhere else. So that, I believe, is a much more fair agreement, where it's like, okay, cool, we're going to protect your ideas. But then what we're also saying is that we're going to share our intellectual property with you guys, and we expect you guys to protect that with us. So that's probably the most important thing. So one is getting the project management things out of the way. And then secondly is to get the kind of the legal, which is the MNDA. There's a stage that happens before this, which is really feasibility and market research and product development sort of research things, so business feasibility, right? Now, those things should generally be done. It's the responsibility of the client to do those things. If you have an idea and you want to make money off of it, you should at least have some sort of business acumen to actually determine, okay, cool, this is a worthwhile idea or not, or we've done the research, so we're going to invest in it. The problem is that if you don't do that business feasibility and you fall in love with your idea and you just go to a developer to get it developed, what happens is that when things get tough in the project, as all software projects do, it's a very complex thing. We'll explain it later. And you can't reference your initial business feasibility and market research and all that stuff, which in the back of your mind should motivate you and say, okay, cool, this is what I'm in for, this is what I'm doing, and this is why I'm doing it, because I can gain these rewards, I can execute on this business plan, I can gain these customers, that can improve this amount of productivity, right, etc. So you have to do that research beforehand, so that you're not entering into this business relationship based purely on this love and emotion and excitement of creating something new. So yeah, that's pretty much planning. Okay, so the second phase of the SDLC is analysis. Okay, now the analysis only begins after the planning phase has officially been complete. The planning phase will officially be complete when there's a project scope document and some sort of overarching business requirement, like we talked about, that will drive the kind of the project from there. It will expand upon that major business requirement that's going to be achieved. I say business requirement constantly because you probably shouldn't be investing in software unless it's going to be business orientated. There's some sort of business to be derived from it, because if you don't have a business model, why would you spend any money on this thing? Like, what are you going to create it for fun? It doesn't make any sense. We're probably not going to work with you if you don't have a business model. We do provide business models, monetization strategies. So you can approach us with an idea and we can show you kind of like, okay, cool, this is how you can make money off of it. Think good about this. You might need to do some traditional activities or traditional business functions in order to supplement the software or to make software work or whatever. But we can assist you with that. But we do generally want to work with clients that know what they want and understand the business value that they're going to be driving before they approach us, so that it just eliminates a lot of friction. Like, we don't need to be answering questions from the client saying, but what is the value here? Okay, so if you understand the value of the software, then you can approach us, and then we can work on a equal footing. We're not mentoring you as to why you need the software. You need to first understand that you need the software, and then we can help you to achieve that. So that needs to be achieved. So I'm kind of, this is probably step 1.5, what I just talked about. And then once you've got that, okay, then analysis begins, which is phase 2, which is what I should be talking about. So in the analysis phase, what happens is you're going to be wanting to define the system in a very granular requirement base. Losing the words, I'm not going to go backwards and re-edit this. So like, for example, 2 outputs of the analysis phase would be a requirements specification document and a business requirements document, or rather functional specification document and a business requirements document. Now, a business requirements document lists all of the finer detail that needs to be implemented in the software in order to make sure that it is a suitable fit for your business model, or your business, or your organization, or the way you do business, whatever the case may be. But it would be specific to you. So for example, maybe if we are creating a learner management system. So let's say that the learner management system for your company needs to cater for 5 sub-companies that you actually own. So you're an umbrella company, parent company, holding company, and you've actually got 5 education institutions underneath that, within that holding company. Now, in that scenario, you're going to have a very specialized set of business requirements, because each one of those 5 different education companies that you own will have its own different sets of business requirements. So maybe the one teaches English, and you need to register people under a certain framework. Maybe the other one is just corporate training, which doesn't have any kind of formal certification but you need to now deal with employees, and maybe you need HR sign-offs. Maybe another one is educational product that isn't lecturer-based, or you interface with an actual person. Maybe it's just like purely distant learning in terms of a product. So maybe it's like, like an electronic course or something, So each one of those things are going to have different types of business requirements. So let's say, for example, the business requirement for the training would be that the system should be able to support the adding of facilitators in the software, right? And then maybe a business requirement for the product would be that it needs to have the ability to track inventory of the amount of products that you actually have available to sell. There we go. Those are two different types of business requirements for two different companies, part of your company. So you can see how it can just branch off like that. Okay, so you always start off with the business requirements, because that will inform the design. You never do design before requirements. You first say, what do I need to achieve? What do I need to satisfy? And then you say, now, how am I going to achieve? How am I going to satisfy? How am I going to present this information? How are we going to interact with the system? So it's like, let's first determine what are we going to achieve with the system, and then we're going to determine at a later stage how are we going to achieve that. So you can, so we can do the analysis phase. No software is being written at this phase. At this stage, the development companies usually will have a business analyst and a project manager, and sometimes a developer. And of those three resources, if not, it's one resource playing all three roles, which is myself. So I'll be the business analyst, I'll be the project manager, and I'll be the developer. And then what will happen is that we have to interview you as a client, you and all necessary stakeholders. So or relevant stakeholders, key stakeholders, as part of the software. So for you as a client, relevant stakeholders would be maybe your head of IT, maybe, well, not maybe, like head of IT, someone who's actually going to use your system. So an employee, a manager, decision makers, anyone that the system's really going to affect, they're going to want to be part of this core development team as key stakeholders, because all of their input is going to be relevant. Now, if you are the business owner and you're actually not going to be using the system, you're actually the last person to be part of the key stakeholder meetings, apart from any planning and like progress and that sort of things, because you want to be designing the system for the people that are using the system. The most important person isn't the manager, it isn't the head of IT, it's that end user that is actually interfacing with the system, because they're the ones who are using it, and they're the ones who actually have all that like key insight as to how your business actually runs. If you have no idea how much information these people have, if you ask them the right question, they'll be able to tell you how you can improve your business. They're just scared. They have no really, they don't get space to kind of like openly say, you know what, we think that this is wrong and you could do this better, right? There's job security, there's all these things. There's like, the lack of confidence. They don't want to be abrasive, So you should probably also be adopting this type of culture where you are continuously engaging with your staff, asking them, how can we do things better? What have you encountered this week that has hindered you from accomplishing your job? And if you can fix one of those things a week for 52 weeks, and they say it increases 1% improvement in your business productivity, you do that over 52 weeks, that's a 52% increase in productivity, minimum. Okay, and I guarantee you now, like you can, everyone can. Even if you're a one-man business, myself included, I can find one thing a week that I can do better. So that's very important, okay, is that analysis phase, making sure that we're getting the right people as part of the core team. And then from the client side, okay, so here's the client side, and they've got their key stakeholders, and then the development side, and they've got their key stakeholders, right? And then there's going to be like interviews, development house will maybe request certain types of documentation, maybe they'll request access to suppliers, or vendors in order to engage with them to get further information. That would be in the scenarios of, let's say, you integrating your system with a client system, or you integrating your system with a supplier system, or you integrating your system with a vendor system. Okay, so for example, let's say you're a distribution plant, okay, and you manufacture food, maybe your Tiger brand or something, right? Now, you're manufacturing these things, right? And let's say one of your clients is Checkers. Now, let's say if you as Tiger Brands had a direct link to Checkers, okay? Now, let's say Checkers runs out of, I don't know, Prenutro. And so they run out of Prenutro. Instead of Checkers phoning Tiger Brands and say, hey, we need more Prenutro, the systems pick that up, and the Checkers system sends an auto order to the supplier, being Tiger Brands. Tiger Brands system just pops up an automatically generated order, and then a manager or something will approve that order. Then that will get packaged and then sent through to Checkers. As opposed to the old way, or the way that things currently get done in almost all businesses, is Checkers are going to run out of Prenutro, and like, oh, we need to order more Prenutro. So, okay, let's now start getting a hold of Tiger Brand, and get Tiger Brand, hey, Tiger Brand, we need, okay, I don't need to carry on. Okay, so there is this phase of where you guys need to work together, and you guys have to develop it together. This isn't a walkie-talkie communication where you say you need this, and then you give it to the development guys, and then the development guys, and then they come up with some sort of information that said, yeah, this is what we think is happening. And then you guys are like, you post it, no, this is not happening. That is rubbish. That's never going to work. It has to be a collaborative. Everyone needs to be on the same page. Everyone needs to talk to each other. All communications, transparency, collaboration. That's it. So that, yeah, a lot of fact finding, job shadowing. Development house may ask to, sit at the offices, visit the offices, interview managers, see how the process happens. Yeah, so that's pretty much sums up the analysis phase. So you're going to come up with two main documents, which are going to be your business requirements document and your functional specification document. I'm not going to explain really the functional specification document because it starts getting technical, and I'd rather keep this more business orientated. If you're a developer and you actually want to learn more about these things, and you're considering a career in business analysis or project management or development, an analyst development role, you're more than welcome to contact me, and I'll be more than happy to share any information with you regarding that. But yeah, for now, clients analysis phase together with the development house, you can come up with those business requirements, functional specification. Once we have those two documents, we can then move on to the design phase, which is phase 3. Okay, so phase 3 is the design phase. Now, in phase 3, what you do is you use your business requirements document and your functional specification, okay? And now is when you start to come up with the prototype, okay? So you're gonna come up with probably like wireframes, right? Like a wireframe. Now, the reason why you use wireframes, think about a wireframe. Okay, so let's say, for example, we're gonna create a website, okay? Now, if we were gonna create a website, let's say it's a one-page website, okay? Let's say it's a business card website. So my company has a business card website, and it's just one page, okay? And it just has the company logo and 5 or 6 services that we offer, and a contact number and email. That's it. Okay, so it's very simple, okay? But that's a website, right? business card website. I call it a business card website. Now, if we had to do that in a wireframe, so just imagine taking a line and a pencil and going, okay, there we go, that's the outline. There we go, we've got an our page. And then we're going to put over here a block and we're going to say logo. And then we're going to put a block over here, we're going to say email address. And we'll put a block over here, we're going to say 6 services. Okay, that sort of thing. So you want to start off like that. You want to start off with the skeleton, right? You want to start off with the skeleton, and then you start to add meat and the veins and the heart and the brain and the central nervous system, and put some skin on it, and then you're going to dress it up and make it look all pretty, and then you'll have a functional website. Sorry, I'm just going to pause this quickly. That was a random bulldog that ran upstairs into the office. Anyways, dealt with that. So what happens is then you make it pretty, then it works. So we don't start off with the end goal in mind. We start off first with the design. In the design, we start off with that infrastructure, the wireframe. Okay, so we design the wireframe. Let's say that's the first page. Now let's say we have a second page. Maybe it's a I don't know, it's a questionnaire. Maybe it's a client questionnaire to see whether you qualify as a customer. So let's say we add a button over there that says client questionnaire for app development. So you can click on that. Now imagine on the wireframe, okay, so we've got a wireframe and we've got a button over there. Then you're going to draw a line, soup, and we're going to have a second page. So now you can see that if you click on that button, oh, we're going to this page. So that starts to map out the journey, okay? So we know that, okay, so we're on this page, cool, we're gonna click over here, it's gonna take us over there. Maybe this page has a back button and you can go like this, so, okay, this takes us back here. Click on the button, oh, okay, it takes us forward. Maybe this page has got another button that takes us to another page, and then you can go, you get the picture, okay? So that's very important, is getting that, first that outline, okay? And then secondly, what you wanna do is you want to define, the user flow, so to speak. Once again, this is not something that is done in isolation of each other. It's not the client doing this by themselves, and it's not yourself or myself or the development team doing it by themselves. Just like the analysis phase, collaboration, transparency, collaboration, transparency, collaboration, transparency has to be done together, has to be in a synchronous communication format. And preferably real-time communication, right? I mean, you want to get into meetings, it must be all meeting-based. You have to interact with people. And as a client, you need to dedicate this time. Another thing, okay, specifically as the Midas Touch or Shahil Supram, either brand, we will not work with you as a client if you do not work within the hours of 8 to 7. We will not work with 8 to 5. If you are looking to get into something as a part-time, we're not interested, okay? Because you're going to want to meet on the weekends, you're going to want to meet after work. Your current day job is going to get in the way of you actually being able to dedicate the necessary amount of time and effort that's actually required to accomplish this. So as a client, be responsible, respect yourself, respect us, respect the developer, to meet them on a traditional work schedule, okay? This by no means means that as a development company or as a developer that they or we or I will only work from 8 until 5. Personally, I'm a 3:45 until 6:30, and then I have some personal time thereafter, but that's just me, right? So, okay, so that's very important, okay, is that we have to meet together, okay? And look, if we go about managing this project in a RAD approach, okay, so it's rapid application design, you get something called a Scrum meeting. I'm not going to go into the whole RAD methodology, but let's talk about Scrum. So if you have a Scrum meeting, what happens is that, rugby, okay, so it's like, I'm so bad at rugby. What's the crouch, touch, engage? I don't know what it is. pause, touch, engage, I don't know. So, and then it's like, okay, two opposing forces, and then it breaks up, and then, you know, everyone carries on their own journey. So it's the same thing. So a Scrum meeting is like 5, 10, 15 minutes, like max. Like that's it. Like you just want to meet to kind of engage. Just say anything that is necessary, or only things that are necessary. You're not meeting to have a meeting. You're having a meeting to just update on progress, bring any current problems that have occurred during the day, and provide any advice or insight as to problems that may occur. Okay. Very important. Scrum meetings. Okay. So at least a minimum of 3 a week. So you want to maybe Monday, Wednesday, Friday, if not every day, which is preferable. I mean, for 5 to 10 minutes, 15 minutes, if you can't dedicate that as a client, you're not serious enough. Wrong client. Don't waste your time. Don't waste other developers' time. Don't waste our time. Okay. Get serious. Okay. And then we can create something cool together. And it'll be a success. Okay. Because it puts too much pressure on the development team if the client isn't playing ball. The development team can move along to a certain point, and then there needs to be feedback and or decisions as to how to move fast. So let's say, for example, a problem occurs and the development team needs to bring it to the client's attention, and the client becomes unavailable for, let's say, 5 days. The development team has to sit for 5 days. In past, what would happen is, and this comes from experience, is that I would try and solve the problem by myself based on what I would assume the client would want. And 6 times out of 10, I'd get it right. But the 4 times out of 10 that I got it wrong, it cost me many days in effort, of wasted effort. And as a one-man band, you have no time. So, right? So you've got to, if you're going to work with me, you're going to have to be able to dedicate that amount of time. If you can't dedicate that amount of time, we can't work together. And it's just better for everyone, right? It's going to make sure that your project's a success, it's going to make sure that we can provide valuable service to you guys, right? You know, so that's very important. It's very important. Very, very, very important. Or you fall in love with this idea and about making the next $1 billion app, right? And you've got a whole bunch of money that you saved because you've been working, and I don't know, you just sold your car, or who knows? You know, don't just become sentimental, excited, and in love with this idea that you can make money. And we're not the ones who are going to make you money. We're going to ensure that the software gets developed as per your vision. This is why it's so important that I talked about in the beginning, that you do your market research. You make sure that what you're going to be creating has got some sort of business value where you can get money out of it. We'll help you with the monetization strategy, but ultimately you need to know why, and why you're creating it, and what you're going to be getting out of it. We're going to make sure that you're going to get the best technology to do that, and that it's going to be working 100% as per the technical specification. Okay. User experience is something that we need to talk about, which is part of design. User experience is iterative. Okay. When we design, we first design for functionality. We first want to achieve the function. We want to give you black and white function. Okay. Can it add 5 plus 6? Okay. So you're going to have 5 plus 6 equals 11. Okay. And it's all standard font, all the same size, no colors, black and white. Okay. We've now achieved our objective. If you needed a calculator that can add, as a piece of software that can add. User experiences is that we might add a keyboard onto the screen, and maybe it has normal size buttons, okay, as version 1. We could use it and we'll say, you know, all the buttons are the same size as rubbish. You know, can we make these buttons bigger? That'll be easier. Okay, cool. Can we make the color of the plus symbol red? You know, it'll help with visually differentiating between the two numbers when you add. You know, can we make the 5 like really big and the 6 really big, and maybe the symbols are kind of small? You know, these sort of things. You can't determine this before the project's begun. You first gotta get to that phase. First have to achieve the functionality, and then you can kind of iterate thereafter. If you are fortunate enough to have quite a big budget, then what we can do is we can hire dedicated user experience designers that can be a part of the beginning of the system. Okay, or if you get a development house, then they will be able to assist you, be part of that, the key stakeholders, and they would have that foresight, and their job function would be to ensure that the user experience is at the highest of quality from the earliest of stages. But if your budget is limited, then you're not going to get a user experience first. You're going to get functionality first. We're going to first achieve your business objective before we make it look good. Okay, and making things look good costs money. In software, it's the most expensive thing. Okay, but anyway, so that's design. So design, wireframe, user flow, and then you start to make it pretty over time. Iterative. We're always going to deliver on functionality first. We're going to make it look good after that. But if you want it to look beautiful, you want it to be Instagram worthy, you want it to be Facebook shareable, Pinterest pinboardable, I don't know, right? Then you've got to pay for that. There's quality. You cannot. It takes I'm going to get the numbers slightly off, but the message will be consistent, or what I'm trying to say will be conveyed, is that I think Toyota can build a Corolla in something stupid like 4 or 5 minutes. Every 4 or 5 minutes, Toyota builds an entire Corolla, a flipping car, a whole car in like 4 or 5 minutes. I think it's less. I think it's like 3 minutes. But anyway, let's call it 5. Even if it's 10, okay. But to build a Bentley, I think it's like 8 months or something, right? They're both cars. They both have 4 wheels. They both have a steering wheel. They both have an engine. They both have a gearbox. They both have a shell. They both have boot. They both have seats. They both have windscreen wipers. They both have a sound system. They both have exhaust pipes. It's all the same thing. It's all the same thing. But then why can one be created in 5 minutes and the other one can be needs 6, 7, 8 months? Right? 1 and 1. Okay. Like, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to just appreciate or respect that. Okay. So don't come with a shoestring budget and then expect the everything here. Right? Be realistic. Okay. We're going to deliver on functionality first, and then your the way it looks and all of the functions and user experience and all that stuff is iterative. Now, here's a very good test, is that if you've got your business value correct as to why you're building this piece of software or integration or app, whatever the case may be, if you got it correct, whoever's going to be using it couldn't care less what it looks like, because they'll be deriving value from it, unless the value that they're deriving from it is for it to look good. But in that scenario, it wouldn't be software. You'd probably be in the creative industry, which would be design and art and stuff like that. That's when you want things to look good. But we can make things look good and functional. So you have to pay for the look good. The functional you'll get as standard. That's what we're delivering. Okay. And our standard also looks pretty damn good. So that's design. So the next phase after design is development, development and implementation. So, yeah. Yes. So phase 4, okay, is it's implementation, or can be considered development, okay, or both, okay. So you're either going to be, well, it's not going to, implementation is development. Let's restart that. So after stage 3, design is stage 4, which would be development and or implementation. Okay. I say and or implementation is because there's kind of like an overlap between design and development, and then development and implementation. So for example, you can be designing, but at some point you might need to do a little bit of development. So you kind of go from design, you touch on development, and then you do your development, which is, you have to do development. And then development usually happens. It happens in three phases. Okay, so you get alpha, beta, and live. Okay, now alpha development has alpha testing, alpha releases. Alpha means that it's going to be developed internally. Okay, so usually only the development team and the development house is going to have access to that. Okay, it's going to be tested by the developers. It's going to be very buggy. It's the first iteration, alpha, right? That's how it starts. So you start off with your alpha design, development. Go through the alpha cycle. Okay. Once you build a bit of it, and then you show the client, and the client confirms, okay, cool, this is right, this is not right, can you change this? And then like, okay, cool. And then you go through this alpha back and forth phase until you get to a point where it's like, you know what, most of the bugs that were in the system have now been ironed out. Okay, so then what happens is you have a beta release. Okay, now the beta release, okay, is what you call a user. It now can be used by the user. So all of the like initial teething problems that shouldn't ever be encountered by the user is dealt with in the alpha phase. Then when you get to the beta phase, the user starts using it. Then what happens is that some like nuances will appear that it's almost impossible to preempt and to code for that. Like it can only, like, for example, you're going on a hike, okay? You've been on this hike a million times. You go up this one pathway. The next thing you know, you look over you get into this top of the ledge, and guess what? There's a flippin' divot that's like just it's huge crater between you and the next like pathway. And it's like, well, that wasn't there last time, you know, like I've done this before a million times. How do I deal with this now? You know, you can't actually just go like that. Now you got to create a solution to bridge that gap, that divot, that crater, or whatever, so that you continue on your path. And that's how it goes. That's software, right? Like there's things that just happens. I mean, it's the nature. You need to just, you know, you need to go with it. You need to be patient with the process, right? And understanding in it. Okay, it's not a perfect science. It's one of the youngest industries in the world, right? If not the youngest industry that has the greatest impact. It is by no means understood by anyone. Really, it's, for example, mobile apps only started to really become commercialized in 2011. Yes, they came out in 2004, 2005, around that era, 2003, with the iPhone. But app developers back then were so scarce that like you had to be a flipping genius and really in touch with tech to be able to create it. So the industry only really developed around like 2010, 2011. And that's when it started to become a lot more commercially available. Otherwise, before that, only corporates, really high blue chip companies would be able to afford that technology. So it's not an exact science. You're not going to get it right. Okay, first time, impossible. No one does it. It's never been done before, ever. In my entire history of being in this industry for, I don't know, what's it now, 2009. So 12 years. No one. I've never met anyone. I've never met that has gotten it right first time. It doesn't happen. That's how software is. The best thing you can only do is make sure that the client is involved in the project along the entire way, and that communication lines are open so that you can reduce that unknowns. The more you guys are in communication with the development team, you reduce that unknowns. It creates a better end product, a faster time to delivery, and just overall a better quality system. So yeah, so we talked about alpha. Once you get through that, you get to the beta phase where user phase, user testing, where the development, where the client starts to release the software to a test group, control test group. Okay, not to the public yet, but users of the system. So let's say, for example, I'm creating an app, and this app is a social network. Okay, So in alpha testing, myself would only be testing it. Okay, make sure that's not there, make sure that's not there. Okay, that's broken. And I'll do as much tests as I can until I'm satisfied that, you know what, this is as bug-free, if not bug-free, in terms of what I can achieve right now. Then we hand it over to the client, and then the client then has a control test group. We can assist you with the control test group and that sort of things. But anyways, so, but the client needs to, it's the client's users. It's not the development's users, okay? But we can help to assist that process. So the client's test users will then start using the system, and then they'll come up with these, they'll interact with the system in a way that it'll break it, because you can't think about every scenario in the world. It's impossible. There's an infinite number of scenarios that can happen at any given point in time. You can only know once it's being utilized. So that's why you have the user acceptance testing. So that'll go on, they'll find out things, they'll interact with the developer will fix it, and then you go through these cycles of beta releases. Now this phase, depending on the size of your project, and your budget usually determines the size of the project, but let's say, for example, Bank Zero, which is a revolutionary piece of technology. It's a mobile app, okay? So this is released by Yanni Joran and his business partner. I'm so rude because I don't know that guy's name, I apologize. But they created a mobile app, which is a bank on a phone with 0 fees. I mean, and they've got a patented bank card. Okay. Now, they plan to be in beta in 2018, okay, when they made a public announcement in 2016 or 15 or something along those lines, right? They only got into beta in 2021 August. So that's 3 years after they had planned the beta. Now you must understand, if that caliber of organization, company, funding, I mean, I wouldn't estimate they're putting anything less than, I don't know. Snapchat got 120 million rand investment for 5 years. So I'd imagine Bank Zero probably got about 250 minimum over the past 5 years. Minimum, at least, if not 200, but definitely more than Snapchat, which was 120 over 5 years. And that was in 2015. I know this because my business partner at the time was creating a SnapScan type app, and I was helping him to design it and build it. And we're at a meeting and we read the news and we're like, SnapScan acquired for 120 million, and we just like, wow, that's crazy. Anyways, so your budget's going to determine what you're going to get out of the system, okay? And even the biggest budgets in the world have got delays up to 3 years, okay? So what we will do as a development house to ensure that there isn't any delays is that you're made aware of the process. So when you cannot look at a software project and embark on it and say, I want an end timeline. It's not going to work like you're going to be disappointed. We're going to be unable to deliver. It's going to create friction. You're not going to be happy. You're going to feel like we're screwing you over. We're not going to be happy because we're like, you don't understand the process and you're not being understanding of the process. So the way that we would work together, and the way that I suggest, if you're a developer and you're watching this, on how you should interact with your clients and customers and how you should guide them through this, is that you should provide time estimates on how long it would take to achieve certain modules, okay? Not including waiting on on client feedback, and not including any change requests from users. Because, for example, let's say I need to create a website and I've got 2 days to create it and I need to start on Monday morning. So Monday morning, the project officially starts. I phone the client, I'm like, hey, can you send me through the website information? And they say it takes him 5 days to give me. He gives it to me on Friday. Then I get it on Friday, let's say afternoon. Then Monday morning comes. I've already booked the following week for another client. Then it gets to Wednesday, and he's like, hey, you haven't developed my website. You said it was going to be done in 2 days. That was last week Wednesday. Now we're in the next week. What's going on here? Okay, so you cannot cater for client feedback. So as a client, you have a responsibility to deliver. You have a responsibility in this project. It's not just the developer. You have to be a good client. It's not just about getting a good developer. You've got to be a good client. You've got to be willing to communicate. You've got to be willing to communicate. You've got to be able to, provide what's necessary in order to bring this thing alive. You're not just handing over a child at a daycare center and like take care of it, we'll come pick it up later. No, it's an interactive process. You've got to get involved. There's no you can't do this virtually. You've got to be involved. If you're not going to be involved, don't waste your time. Close this video series and go find someone that's gonna waste your time and you're gonna waste their time and you're gonna end up in a fight. It's not going to be worth it. So get involved. You have to be involved. You have to be committed. You have to make time. You have to be prepared. You have to know why you're creating this thing in the first place. You have to know the value out of it. You have to be able to translate that into actionable steps in achieving it with the development hubs. Okay. All of these things together are going to bring you to the final promised land of the live release. Okay. I've kind of combined development with implementation, and I've also talked about testing, okay, in there. So I've kind of combined it, and instead of making it like 6-7 part video, I decided to do that right now. So yeah, so that's the entire process. So you're going to go through the planning phase. You're going to come up with a requirements document, a function specification, or rather project scope, project overview, then analysis, function specification, business requirements document. You're going to sign off on that. You can start designing. You're going to have wireframes. You're going to have user flow. You then have higher quality designs. Once you sign off on the designs, then you start development. Development starts with. Sorry, I just need to pause it quickly. Development starts with. Important call. That's more important. Development starts with the development house. Then they'll develop up until you get an alpha version. It will be tested internally by the developers. Once they sign off it and say, okay, cool, we're now ready for beta, they'll then hand over the software to the client. Client will then be able to hand it over, let users, part of the test control group, use it, they'll test it, they'll provide feedback to the developers. The developers will include that user feedback and then they'll improve it. Something to bear in mind about user feedback is that user feedback will usually equate to user experience. And unless you have specifically stated this in the design and it hasn't been delivered, then it's a cost. It costs to improve user experience. So for example, let's say I create a button, okay? And this button is to navigate from this screen to the next screen, okay? So we'll create it and then the user clicks on this button, it goes from this screen to that screen. Now let's say we give it to the user says, you know what, this takes 3 seconds to load, okay? But now let's say that, I'm gonna take this call and pause this. Okay, so user experience, so the user wants to move from this screen to that screen. It says, you know what, it takes 3 seconds to load. Now, when we designed the system, we knew that we needed to go from this screen to that screen, okay? That was the objective. What we delivered to you is something that takes you from the screen to that screen. We've delivered as per your specification. But now users and say, it can't take 3 seconds. It's like, well, how long should it take? No, we expect it to take 0.2 seconds. Like, okay, but if you want it to take 0.2 seconds, then we might need to implement a more complex framework to design the system. Or we might need to include additional servers to process more information simultaneously to make sure that that page loads faster, right? It's like saying, but when we first developed it, it's like we needed to go from this page to this page, so we only used one server. So the budget for the system only included one server. So it'll take you, with your original budget, it'll take you 3 seconds to achieve. If you wanted to achieve in 0.3 seconds, then you need to add 5 servers that are going to make it achieve that. which means 5 extra expenses that you must take on board as a client in order to satisfy this client requirement. Now, that is not our responsibility to fix that, okay? It's our responsibility to fix that if it doesn't meet the original specification. User expectation, you cannot plan for it. It's impossible. I don't even know what I want to eat for supper later tonight. How am I going to know what someone wants out of a system that hasn't even been built? How can I plan for that? Right? How can you plan for it? It's not possible. Okay. So also clients expect the world, and most software is free. It's amazing how people who get things for free have got the greatest demands now. But that's how life works. And I'm a service provider, so I hope to provide for that. But you as a client need to understand this, okay? You need to understand this. Once again, it comes down to the bottom line of, you know, how much are you willing to spend on this? You know, are you open to your client, to your customers? It's not our responsibility to satisfy your customer. It's your responsibility as a client to satisfy your customers. It's our responsibility to satisfy your request. And your original request was that it needed to go from this page to that page, and we achieved that. You cannot pass your client's disappointment onto us and make us fix that. That is incorrect. That is not the service that we are offering. And if you want us to solve that, we're going to give you a solution to that, but it's not going to be part of the original scope of work. It has now changed. The project has now evolved. And this is why it's almost impossible to plan a software project. Because once you get to the user testing, there are so many users, have so many different requirements and expectations of the system that you cannot possibly plan for this before the project has begun. And it inevitably blows up the scope of the project, which is why you got to learn how to be lean in the way you release a system. But that's will be a whole nother series about how to rapidly develop software for mobile applications. So yeah, so let's say you get to the end of the user testing, all the users are happy, you're happy, boom, you hit into live, and now it goes out into the public. Cool, we've achieved our objective. Then what happens thereafter is you go into maintenance. And in maintenance, we just make sure the development task that your system continues online. And that's the software development cycle. I will be re-editing all of these videos, taking the information that I've already said in this, re-saying it in a more structured manner. But for now, to get the momentum going, to get some content out there, welcome. And you're welcome.